Thank you for joining us on the LHi Group podcast In Those Shoes. To reintroduce myself, my name is Melissa and I'm on the senior talent team here at LHi Group. Francis, thank you for taking time out of your schedule. I appreciate between weddings, Ironmans and work. You've been very busy, but do you mind just giving us an introduction to yourself, please?
I can indeed. Thank you for having me on. I even had a shave last night just for today.
Making your effort.
Um, so yeah, for those who don't know me, who aren't LHI, my name is Francis. I'm an associate director here. I look after our Lawrence Harvey contract division across UK and Europe. So yeah,
Nice.
that's me.
Well, very glad to have you on with us. The whole obviously concept of the podcast is focused around the younger you and the journeys of everyone in the business so far, hence In Those Shoes. Your war story, if you will, is one that's used a lot for typical graduates coming into the business, talking about what the journey is like from grad to great. And often we share your story with graduates coming into the business. So do you mind just giving us a bit of a walkthrough or a bit of insight into what your entry point into recruitment looked like?
It's a long time ago now, so
Yeah.
I'll have to delve into the archives and
Yeah.
try and remember what it was like back then, and I'll try not to sound very old. But
No, don't worry.
journey into recruitment, well, it's about probably 9 years ago now, in terms of first starting to look at it. I was at university, um, coming up to final year. I went to uni and studied English,
Mm-hmm.
which a lot of people are surprised about, given the state of my emails sometimes. But I did English because I loved sport and I loved well, I was quite good at writing, and I wanted to be a sports journalist. I thought I'd marry the two together. Going into final year, looking at jobs, it was quite clear that journalism probably wasn't something I wanted to get into from a financial perspective, but
Yeah.
also there's probably five or six top sports journalism jobs in the country. So to get one of those is going to be pretty challenging. Started looking around. I think every single job board was just inundated with recruitment. I had no idea what recruitment was, no idea that that even existed as an industry. Um, and it was actually my mum, for some reason, had done recruitment for about a year when she was in her
Not
early
like that.
20s, and she suggested I start applying for recruitment jobs. So I've actually got my mum. Shout
That's
out to my mum to thank for me actually applying for some jobs in recruitment. So
thanking herself
um,
for that.
say again.
She'll be thanking herself now for that,
I
consider.
know I can't tag her in this interview
Yeah.
though, otherwise it might go viral. Um, so yeah, we I started applying for jobs on recruitment, and I think by sort of Jan, Feb time in my final year, I was pretty much decided that that was what I wanted to do, having interviewed with a few different rec to recs at the time and got a
Yeah.
bit more of a feel for what recruitment was. So um, yeah, I guess the classic
Falling
fell
into
into it.
yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Did you not?
I didn't go to uni dreaming to do recruitment.
Yeah, I don't think any of us do. Did you not?
No.
I thought it was the story was that you came into LHI specifically through Steve. Is that right?
No, vice versa.
Vice versa,
Steve
Steve.
cannot take credit for introducing me to
I
LHI.
wasn't sure which one it was. I was like, I'm sure Anne-Marie found one of you guys, and then one of you,
No, all me. So Jen Brown found me.
Dan Brown. Okay, got
Jen
you.
Brown found
Credit
me. So
to you.
I'd interviewed at um I actually interviewed at quite a few places for a rec to rec.
Mm,
And I actually got quite a lot of no's
yeah, I did.
from recruitment companies because a lot of the interview processes were assessment centers,
Yeah.
and typically the loudest person on those assessment centers would get noticed and taken through to the next stages. And I'm quite chilled and laid back and don't like to kind of be center of attention. So I wasn't getting much interest on those.
Yeah.
And then it was a call from Jen Brown, who was internal rec at the time, telling me about Lawrence Harvey. And then she ironically got me in for an assessment center. But
Mhm.
forced myself to be a little bit louder this time around, even though
Yeah.
I did actually turn up 10 minutes late.
Oh,
So that was interesting.
yeah. Oh my God. And since then, it's obviously been from graduate to now senior associate director within the business. What
Yeah.
does that journey look like? I imagine there's like key milestones along the way that stand out to
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, definitely a long journey, even though it sounds not, coming up to 9 years, but it has felt like it's flown by. Key milestones, I guess surviving my first year probably was quite a big milestone.
Yeah.
It was probably the most fun I've had in London ever from a social perspective, and it felt like an extension of university basically,
Yeah.
um, which probably caused issues at times, um, including my first week. But we got through those moments. Yeah, I think getting through that first year, um, it was probably the hardest thing I've ever done, even though it was fun at the same time.
What was it that made it so hard, just to jump in? Because I think it's good to give perspective on what that can look like.
I think we came into a business where we were still quite small at the time. Um, so I think we were probably, I don't know, 50 people maybe in London. Like I could be wrong on that, but 50 people in London, we probably only had one or two offices at the time. So there was definitely no place to hide on
Yeah.
that sales floor, and boisterous atmosphere at times. And yeah, you just kind of learn the hard way, in the sense that we were coming in at 7:30 in the morning. We were working till 7 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
Not because we were forced to, but we kind of
Yeah.
quickly realized that that's probably what we had to do to do well.
Yeah.
So it's 12-hour days. You'd go home, you'd have no money, you'd make some terrible dinner.
Selling the dream.
Yeah, you'd go
Yeah.
you'd go to bed, and my bed at the time was my sister's sofa.
Yeah.
I'd get up and then you'd do it all again.
Yeah.
So it wasn't probably the most glamorous thing, but then you'd get to
Yeah.
Thursday,
Fun begin.
and the fun would begin.
Can I just
And
jump in and ask really quickly? Because I think
yeah,
now, definitely with like the new graduate market and just the new generation, I think, like you said, no one's forcing you to come in at 7:30. No one's forcing you to stay in the office till 7. But I think that obviously, like cliche, you get out what you put in, but ultimately in those early days it is such a steep learning curve. There is so much you're having to take on board and try and implement. You can only do so much in the working hours that you have. How important do you think it is that you did do that, like you did have that work ethic and you did put in the extra mile in the early days? Like how imperative do you feel like that's been to you and your journey in comparison to people who do just do like the 9 till, well, the 8:30 till 5:30 in our case, you know?
yeah. Well, I think the results speak for themselves, in the
Yeah.
sense that the people who started in that grad camp, I think there's only me and Steve left, and we
Yeah.
were probably the only ones doing that.
Yeah.
Definitely helped by the fact that we were mates from uni and we were pushing each other on to do that.
Yeah.
Um, but there would be times when we would just want to get in at 7:30 or get in at 7:20, just to, I guess, portray a good perception of us. That there might have been days where we didn't actually do a lot between 7:30 and when everyone else got in,
Yeah.
but we were quite keen to forge a perception that we really cared and we wanted to put the hard
Yeah.
yards in to be successful. I think also I never felt coming in that um I never felt like, I know, the most natural recruiter or salesperson. So I always felt that I would have to kind of put additional hours in to catch up on maybe some more naturally,
Mm-hmm.
you know, salesy gifted people. So
Yeah.
yeah, but I think we just always felt that if you wanted to be the best or succeed in that, you're gonna have to work more hours.
And who supported you during that time? Like, did you feel, because I think a lot of people come in and they're like, oh my God, I'm like, no one's naturally always really salesy, or no one's naturally just going to pick it up in their first 2 months, maybe even 3 months. So who would you say has been like imperative to helping you or guiding you or supporting you?
I think we're also like very fortunate to have a like a pretty tight knit support kind of
Yeah,
group around us. I think there was obviously like less layers and less of
yeah.
a structure back then, so everyone was similar to what we are now in the sense that there is, you could walk up to someone on the board
Hmm.
now still and have a conversation with them. There's no kind of
Yeah, closed door policy.
yeah, like barrier between us, but it was very like the likes of like see Miles was my manager. Yeah, Anne-Marie was there, like Anne-Marie was training me from day one, like
Mhm.
um so she was a bit of a motherly figure
Yeah,
at times. You had Kim, who was there all the time, who again, like similar to Anne-Marie, was really supportive. Um, who else was there? Jim, like Jim was super close to all of us at that point. So we had like a real tight knit support, and then yeah, I was fortunate to have a manager at Mars who was obviously like incredibly empathetic and
yeah,
helpful with helping through some challenging times and um, supporting you and continue to motivate you. And I think it also definitely helped that obviously within 6 weeks, Steve had joined the business. We
yeah,
just spent 3 years at uni together. So that definitely helped having your best mate join. And then about, I don't know, 2 months after that, Zala also joined, who I'd been mates with since I was 9 years old, playing cricket with. Got him into business as well. So we quickly like had
three.
imagine going to work with your best mates.
I know.
Like we definitely don't appreciate that 100%. We think that's normal because that's all we've ever done. But
No, I forget you've all joined from uni to here. It is just an extension
yeah,
of
literally. So
Wednesday.
like it
Yeah.
definitely meant that like there was no like Thursday nights. It was no like, oh, I need to break the ice and really kind of, oh, I'm a bit scared to go out. Like it'd be like, well, I'm going out with my mates. I'm going out with my pals from uni.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
yeah, it definitely helped get you through
Yeah.
those
And
early periods.
yeah, and you mentioned obviously you had really close access with like Jim and really Kim, like the best. And how would you say, or even Miles, like how have they shaped your approach to leadership or your approach to your role? Because they are the people at the top that echo the LHI way and the younger you and good human and all that kind of stuff. So how do you think that's influenced how you lead your team or even go about your role day to day?
Yeah, I think I think when you start managing or you start leading or even those from those early days when you've got a manager, you're not consciously picking up on stuff to be like, right, this is how I'm going to manage. You're just like you're just a sponge and you're taking it all in, and then you're not thinking about that step in the future. I think when you then move into it, you naturally start to display traits and behaviors and attitudes and values that you've obviously had ingrained into you from the people who have been your manager.
Yeah.
Like I've had Mars as my manager for probably 7.5 years out of the 8.5 years I've been here. So like naturally, there's probably going to be a bit of likeness to how we manage. But I think there's probably like a common theme running through all the leadership team at Lawrence Harvey anyway on how they go about leading the way and being a manager from um their behaviors. I think it's quite a common.
Yeah.
Like they're not shouting the door down. It's like a very kind of you know supportive network, and but at the
Yeah.
same time pushing you to
Yeah.
always get better and be the best that you kind of can be.
Yeah. And what would you
Um,
say are like the core values of LHI that you resonate with the most?
Core values. I think the well, it's not really necessarily a value of LH, but that, well, one of the main things talked about is like the good human piece. And
Yeah.
I definitely think we've got like a no dickhead approach.
Yeah.
Can I say that?
Yeah. Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
gonna bleep that out.
No, we can keep it in.
Like we quickly fish out any bad apples
Yeah.
across the group. Um, we're definitely a good human business for sure. But I think despite that, we're definitely like a high performing business as well. Like we're always pushing people across to do different things and push themselves further. And I guess that ties back into, the adventure value of LH from the sense that when I joined, it always felt very kind of entrepreneurial and
Mhm.
you were like pushing barriers and offices were being opened up and markets are being started and um like I remember being 12 months in and pitching to Miles that we had to fly to Switzerland to be present for a final interview
Oh, really?
when it was my candidate and a candidate from another agency. But this was like my first like big, like I'd done quite a few placements before, but this was like a big placement. He was going to lead the whole program for the whole transformation project for like the next 3 to 4 years.
Hmm.
Um, so we knew if we landed this person, we were then going to get business from this company and
Oh,
this
yeah.
project for like the coming years. But we had this candidate at final interview. I knew the other candidate interviewing for it, and I knew that they were like pretty neck and neck.
Mm.
So I remember saying to Mars like, we need to fly, we need to go, we need to fly to Switzerland, we need to be there for final interview, and then we need to agree terms and we need to close a deal in person. Because if we're there and we fly all the way there, they can't say no to us.
Yeah.
Because like we're there, like how awkward would that be if they say no, 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 sorry guys, we're going with the other candidate.
Uh-huh.
But I think that comes back to that adventure piece. Like I remember Mars being like, yeah, not sure about that. I'm not sure that's gonna get signed off. Like you've literally only been here a year. Like you
Yeah.
probably need to
Earn your
put some
stripes.
money on the table before we
Yeah.
jet you off to Geneva.
But
But I remember
after
like
the end?
we didn't even have a CFO at that point. So before we
Yeah.
signed off on it, I think
Yeah.
I probably just had to buy Forby a couple of beers.
That was so funny.
And everyone out there flew out there in the morning. Miles nearly missed the flight. Literally got there as we were boarding. Got there, agreed terms, CIO in person, got the offer, and then flew
Rest
back.
of history.
I was like, probably my favorite day in recruitment.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So like that, but like we like that just like not every company would have allowed you to do that. Like
Yeah.
that was just like kind of like a cool, yeah, just do it type
Yeah.
approach, which um it's probably harder to have now in terms of like being a bigger business and um post COVID, definitely
Mm.
less like desire from people to want to go out and do that
Yeah.
stuff. But
Yeah.
yeah, hopefully we start to bring that back a little bit.
And what would you say is, because we kind of swayed off, sorry, which is my fault, like the journey to, you're obviously from grad to senior director now, senior associate director, sorry, but there's obviously, like we said, been some like key milestones and key people who've been part of that journey. Do you feel like there's been
Mm.
any like significant learning experiences that you would share with people coming into recruitment now or coming into your market that you think, yeah, if I'd known that sooner, that could have made a big difference? Or
Yeah, I think I felt quite fortunate that I feel like I had a fairly good um understanding of recruitment when I came into it because I was if I'm gonna like go into something if it's like sport or
yeah,
you know running a marathon or playing cricket or whatever it might be, like I try to like really like immerse myself in it and be prepared for it. So before I started, I remember buying like a couple of books and like reading about recruitment,
getting your mom
which
to tell you all about
get my
it.
mum to tell me all about it. I remember like the boys at uni would be like, "Why are you reading this book?" Because like
That is so
we're
funny.
still at university. Why are you reading some nerdy book about recruitment?
Yeah.
But it felt like I then had like a real good impression of what it was coming in. So I'd always say be prepared for it. And I think the one thing which I recognized pretty early on, which a lot of our competitors just weren't doing, or I still see it now from grads or people coming into the business, is that I very quickly wanted to be like a complete expert in what I was recruiting for.
Yeah.
Um, I felt completely out of my depth speaking to candidates in the first week, trying to have a conversation about
Words you don't
Microsoft
know.
Dynamics when
Yeah.
I literally didn't have a clue what I was talking about.
Yeah.
Um, and I hated that feeling, and I felt like I couldn't have proper conversations with people if I didn't know what I was talking about.
Mhm.
Um, so I spent a lot of time YouTube videos, reading books, really like getting an understanding and clear feel of what I was recruiting for, so that I could have like proper conversations. And I think by having that, like immediately you started to build better relationships because candidates were coming off the phone like, okay, this guy actually knows what he's talking about.
And they buy into you
He's
more.
not just one of 1,000 recruiters calling me. Like I can actually speak to him about the market, market trends, the actual product itself. So I think I would, yeah, looking back on that, I guess getting from like grad to like senior,
Yeah.
that probably happened at a good pace because I'd actually researched and I understood what I was recruiting.
Yeah. Is that something you've done consistently throughout your whole career, just constantly making sure you're researching and understanding what that looks like?
Yeah, like I maybe have a slight fear of the unknown at times.
Mhm.
Um,
Control of everything.
yeah, I'm not a control freak, but like I
Yeah, yeah.
definitely
Like to see where things are heading.
need for example, yeah,
Yeah.
I like to be prepped on stuff.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
The more prepped I am, the better the more
Yeah.
comfortable I feel. So
Mhm.
um
That's good advice. I think that makes a lot of sense. I think like you say, a lot of people fall into recruitment and then they kind of just really enjoy the social aspect of it, but it is such a steep learning
yeah.
curve. The more you can
But
do.
I also think the
Yeah.
social aspect of it is like very important.
Yeah.
Um, like the first few LHI trips I went on were just unbelievable, and
Yeah.
you very quickly forged a network and a friendship through those trips.
Mhm.
Which again, going back to your question about how do you kind of get through those early moments,
Yeah.
it's probably that we just loved coming to work because it was such a fun place to be because you'd made all these mates and it was such a good crack. And but at the same time you knew you were in a sales business and you still had to perform to
Yeah.
stay here type thing. So
Yeah. Kept you on your toes.
but I would definitely be trying to throw yourself in
Hmm.
to building a bit of a social network at work as well as a purely work
Hmm.
focused one.
That's really good advice. Definitely. I think that social side of things is super important. You want to integrate with a business. You don't want to come in and feel like, who am I going for lunch with? Or am I going to get invited to the
Yeah,
pub?
like obviously that's
That's
easier for
yourself.
some people than not, and
Yeah.
it was easier for us because we had mates, so we
Yeah.
were coming with mates. But um, yeah, you kind of want to build a bit of a name and a bit of a brand for yourself.
Yeah. And I don't know if that kind of answers the question, but I think we were saying earlier, like it's really uncommon typically for people to stay in agency recruitment for longer than 2, 3, maybe even 5 years max. Whereas, like we said, you've been in the business almost 9 years now. Why do you think that is? Like, what keeps you with LHI Group?
I'm a massive creature of habit, so that's probably one of the reasons. It's too much effort to move elsewhere. No, I'm joking. I there's just like no reason. Well, I guess there's two sides to it, right? Is if fundamentally if you don't perform and you don't if you're not good at your job, like
Yeah.
someone will make that decision for you. So I guess I've been fortunate to have the opportunity to stay here for such a long time, partly because of performance and
Yeah.
um, continuing to add value. Um, but then I guess on the flip side of that, by doing that, you also allow yourself then to maybe want to or put yourself in a position to explore opportunities outside of LHI. But I've never wanted to do that because I've always felt that we're kind of setting the bar as a recruitment business in London and in the UK, and that maybe that's slightly biased because I've not seen anything outside of it. But I think in the markets we do and specialities we have, like I think we are probably one of the best. And I always view it as, you know, if you're playing for Liverpool, why would you want to leave and move to Bolton. Sorry, Keir. Like we're one of the best businesses, in my opinion. That why would you want to why would you want to move elsewhere? But I think that's part of the reason. And I think, just as I've said, like culturally and working with the people I work with, like it is a very, very good crack as well as everything else. So
Mhm.
that there'd be no upside for me
Yeah.
to want to work for a different agency
Yeah.
or
And do you feel like
move
you've
on at the
had,
moment.
because it seems like I think you've like had a promotion like every year, so it probably feels like you've had that support and the opportunities without ceilings to grow. And I think you can see that across loads of people in the same position as yourself now who joined us as graduates 6, 7 years ago, 8 years ago. They've all had that continuous development. Do you think that's something as well?
Yeah, for sure. Like everyone says, it's like the most classic recruitment interview answer ever when you ask someone why they want to do recruitment, and they say, well, it's, you get promoted based on merit and things like
Yeah.
that. And it is true. Like there is, obviously it gets harder the further up you go, because there's less roles, and probably to make the
Yeah.
jump to the next position requires like a lot more personal development, and it's less numbers focused. But um, from your journey as a grad to, say, a divisional principal, it is literally purely based on performance and making sure you are developing as a person, but it is very performance based. So there's no waiting for someone to move to get promoted, or any of that kind of red tape. So yeah, I think we're pretty good as a business as supporting people on that journey. If they're performing, then we'll make sure promotions happen, type thing.
Definitely, definitely. And looking ahead, obviously it's been a really exciting journey so far, but the next sort of 5 years, your um career, like how do you see your career evolving or your team evolving? What do you want that to look like going forward into the future?
Yeah, I mean, it's a slightly scary prospect thinking
Yeah.
about what things are going to look like when I'm 35.
Hey, I'm 32. I'm not even that far off, so you can't be saying that.
I mean, that sounds old.
Mm,
Bear in mind, I joined the business when I was 21.
I know that is actually quite crazy. I think a lot of
Um,
what we do is talk around like future you. So it is something that's worth thinking about. With the business, I want to support people with that.
yeah,
We always
but I
keep
still,
what people
yeah,
got in mind.
35. I mean, that's old. No offense to anyone at LH who's 35 and over.
There's plenty of people 35 and over who are definitely going to be offended.
Um, yeah, I think it's exciting. Like, obviously, we're on a EOT journey at the moment, which could lead us to multiple different paths and opportunities and um, eventualities of a evolution of the business, for sure. I just see the business continuing to grow, continue to evolve, move into different markets, move into different geographies, move into different, types of recruitment. And I think if we don't, then we will probably stagnate, and things will become quite challenging.
Yeah.
It's like the Nike principle of you grow or you die,
Hmm.
which is slightly morbid, but it's probably true in our sense. Like we probably
Yeah.
do need to keep changing and adding things on, and um, moving with the times, everything which is going on with like AI and different markets and styles of recruitment and all of this jazz. Like, um, so yeah, I think as how do I see it all going? I think, yeah, we've obviously potentially got an EOT event in the next, 2 years, which
Super
will
exciting.
will be really exciting for the business, and will suddenly change the futures of a lot of people, which will be really, really exciting. And then we'll be in a position to, I guess, continue to evolve and grow and become just become a better business over the next kind of 3, 4 years, which should be great to see.
Definitely. And just touching on the EOT side of things, again, that's something not every recruitment agency typically offers, but I'm always really keen to speak with people when we are doing the podcast, understanding like what working for an EOT business, what does that mean to you personally? Because it's so different for everyone. But yeah, what does that mean to you?
I think it means that we've still retained like a lot of the values and a lot of the feel of how it felt when I first joined the business.
It's great to hear because you have such positive.
Yeah, like it's hard. It's very difficult to maybe answer that question because I've never experienced another recruitment company, so
Okay.
I don't really know what at the moment what like a non-EOT business looks like.
I guess
But
we were that before though. Like we were never always EOT and it was still great. So it's almost like an added bonus, isn't it?
I almost feel like now we're an EOT business. It feels like a continuation of
Yeah.
what it was like before. Like we probably had an EOT feel about us, even though
Yeah.
we weren't officially an EOT business.
Yeah.
It was very employee led. Like I've said, like it wasn't, top down,
Right.
like strict management. It was like very like the employees almost leading like what direction we were going in from a day-to-day basis. I think obviously the beauty of it now, yeah, like I said, we're not under the instructions of a external party telling us how we should or shouldn't behave or what we should or shouldn't be doing. Like we're quite still collaborative in that sense, and I guess just all running towards that kind of common goal now, which is obviously a potentially a large financial incentive for a lot of people. It offers up a I guess an opportunity and a platform to all be striving towards the same thing and essentially pulling in the same direction, which um, I think leaves us in a pretty fortunate position.
Yeah, definitely very, very exciting. Okay, and then we've kind of touched on this already, but what advice you would give to young professionals or graduates looking to have a career in recruitment? You obviously mentioned research the role, come in prepared, and get involved in the culture, make friends, build out that network. Is there anything else you would say?
Like it might sound really old school, and like I don't want to put people off a job in recruitment, but and it isn't just about the hours
Yeah.
and that type of thing, but I'd say from like a mindset thing and like a mentality towards the job, I'd just be asking yourself the question like, where does this kind of like rank on my priorities? Like, am I kind of, personal life, what I get up to the weekend, what holiday am I going on next? And then I'm thinking about work.
Mm.
If that's like the order of your kind of life, you are probably going to struggle. It's like recruitment is like it's an all-consuming role. And I think that's the thing I kind of remember most from those like first like 2, 3, 4 years when you're trying to make it in recruitment. It's like you have to become slightly obsessed by it. And that
Mhm.
might sound really boring to become obsessed by recruitment. And you might be like, that sounds awful. But unfortunately, like you look at all the top bidders here and they've all done
Yeah.
that. Like it has been all about work.
Mhm.
There's no doubt that that is the first thing on their list of priorities. You ask any of the board members, they'll say the same thing.
Yeah.
Your your life literally becomes consumed by it.
But not forever. Give some light.
Well, it depends. No, is that I'm not even saying that's a negative thing. Like, is it good to be able to throw yourself into something completely and become
Amazing.
totally obsessed by it? Yes, it is. Or are you sat there and all you're thinking about is the weekend, like
Yeah.
living for the weekend. Like you're spending 5 out of 7 days at work. You might as well try and find a way to enjoy it,
So
and
true.
as a result, become successful in it.
Yeah.
Um, you have to outwork your competition. You have to have a work ethic which is going to be better than
Personal.
other recruitment businesses. You have to be wanting to check your emails at 9 o'clock at night. If you have to be on holiday, particularly in contract recruitment, checking your emails.
Yeah.
Um, Unfortunately, like it doesn't ever stop.
Yeah. But there's benefits to that too, because there's so many opportunities that come with it. So I
Well,
get
like everyone know, yeah. I mean, like we've touched on it before. Like, there's not many other jobs which allows you the opportunity to get promoted every single
yeah.
year, but
So
based purely on merit.
yeah.
Financially, you can have, you know, better opportunity in recruitment in your early 20s than probably any job
Yeah. Agreed.
ever.
Yeah.
Um,
Holiday incentives, like you've just had an
yeah,
amazing
like we get looked after,
yeah.
those holiday incentives were unbelievable. Like they're
Yeah.
some of the best trips I've ever been on.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, but my advice to sum that up is don't come into it like half-assed, like dipping
Yeah.
your toe into it. Like if you see this as a bridge in like 2 years' time to a different career, or you see it as just like, oh, I just need to get a job after uni and then it's just going to tie me over, like you're probably not gonna you're not going to be successful in it. You have to like go for it and become like all in,
Mm-hmm.
um and kind of live and breathe it a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that doesn't sound too depressing,
It doesn't. It's
but
the most
like,
transparent advice we've had, but to be fair, I think it makes a lot of sense of what you're saying. Do you know what I mean? When you give it context, then I completely agree with it.
yeah, it's true. I mean, we were probably fortunate again that we had, when we were starting, or like in our first 1 to 2 years, we ended up then having a house, living in a house with like Steve, Zala,
All your besties.
Spice, who also works here.
Mhm.
It was like 4 or 5 of us working together and then living together. Like you
Yeah.
naturally then you were just all consumed by it, because you,
Yeah.
unfortunately, in a little, probably Steve would do it more than the rest of us. You'd go home and Steve would tell us about his pipeline at 9 o'clock at night, which would be unbelievably boring chat, but it was always on everyone's mind. And then
Oh
you'd
God.
be you'd be walking to the tube station at 6 o'clock in the morning, and he'd refresh what his pipeline was and just make sure you remember what it was. But you're always thinking about
Context.
it. You're
Yeah.
always like competing with each other,
Yeah.
and it just became like your, yeah, slight obsession.
Yeah.
Like I said, we'd go on holiday and we'd still be having to be on calls and do stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I think if you're like looking, particularly when you're like a C1, C2, C3, like you're probably going to have to sacrifice certain things and probably sacrifice a degree of a work-life balance to make sure
Actually, yeah.
you're going to
Boards you
make it.
sign up to 100%.
So yeah, you're probably going to get no applicants now for the next 6 months.
You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised. And then obviously we're hiring within your teams at the moment. Give us a quick sales pitch on opportunities within your team and why people should join.
Well, I don't think anyone's going to want to join now, so you,
You
you might
will.
as well
Just
skip
go
this
yourself.
question. Um, yeah, I think we're, from a Lawrence Harvey contract perspective, I think we're probably, well, I think we're the highest performing business unit in London. I think we set standards extremely high. Um, we are a high performing business unit. Um, we got plans to grow substantially over the next 1 to 2 years. We do different markets, different geographies. Historically, over the last 3, 4 years, we've had the top billers working in contract. We've had our highest earners working in contract. We've had the people building the biggest teams working in Lawrence Harvey contract. So um, you'd be surrounded by arguably the best billers in London. Um, and we're probably able to offer a platform and a foundation now, which enables people to come in and hit the ground running, but be surrounded by people who have, as we've said all along, have walked in their shoes from graduate through to top biller. So we understand that journey, and yeah, I feel like we're probably in a very good position to support new people moving through that journey of LH.
And are we touching on the fact that you've opened up the US region from London now?
Yeah, we can do. It's another string to the bow of the division, in the sense that we're now moving a specific market and touching on the US geography, which is exciting for those guys, giving them an opportunity to do something different.
Yeah.
And then for anyone up for that, it, offers a possible pathway to move to the US,
So
um, or alternatively can continue working what is historically a more rewarding market from the UK, and offers up some exciting client trips. Although getting signed off to the US might be harder than getting signed off to Geneva was, but
Geneva.
we can give it a go.
You can do your best.
Yeah,
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Francis. Really
that's all right.
appreciate it. Anything left you want to say? Any last words?
Not really. No,
No?
we're all
Cool.
good. Enjoyed that. Nice to speak to you.
But yeah, thanks for listening, and we'll catch James on the next podcast.